we're supposed to compose this checkerboard picture from alternating smaller pictures. This one, this one. And we're given a 2D array of the grayscales for these pixels, and then we're supposed to come up with a much bigger 2D array for the result. So it's a good question how big that 2D array is supposed to be. So we're supposed to make n copies of each of these. So let's find out, let's just give some of these things a name. Let's say that this thing has width w and height h. Then we know that each of the individual arrays has size width times h. And now how big does the total array have to be? So its width is n times the original width, and its height then is n times the original height. So we're going to have to be making an int bracket n times width n times height and populate that. Now, how many loops do we have? We have to do n copies. Let me use a graph paper for this, otherwise it gets too messy. So let's say we want to do this 5 times. We need to do it 5 times in this direction. We need to do it 5 times in that direction. And when I say it, what do we need to do? We need to take the appropriate image, which was one of those two, and we need to copy all of its pixels into a slot here. Well, what does it mean to copy all of its pixels? That means you copy all of the pixels in this direction, and there's the width of them. And then you copy in a nested loop. You go by the height and copy all of those. Now, what does a copy like this mean? If we knew what this top left corner here was, and let's say this was, and I said as a hint, it's probably easier to just do this with rows and columns and not worry about x's and y. So if I call this r start and c start, for example, then you want to have, say, an I that goes in this direction and a j that goes in this direction, and then it would be r start plus I c start plus j, and so this would be the big one, and then it would be the original ij. So how do I know what r start and c start are? Well, now I have to come up with other indexes for this iteration and that iteration. So if I call this one, say, k, and this one l, then each of these, I know what the size of each of those is, so now I can figure out what is r start, and r start would be, because I'm going in the horizontal direction, it's k times what? It's horizontal, so it's k times the width, and c start is, I have to be careful, it's l times the height. Now that gives me all the information I know, except for one little thing. The original here changes. Sometimes it's supposed to be one, and sometimes it's supposed to be the other. Now, as one of you very cleverly remarked on the discussion group, that's a problem that you had previously solved in one of the loop exercises. The trick here is to look at k plus l mod 2. and that's what gives you the checkerboard. K plus L mod 2 is 0 in the fields that I'm shading here right now, and 1 in the others. And so depending on whether K plus L mod 2 is 0 or 1, you take one of the originals or the other. So if we have a quick look at the code here, the code is exactly what I just described, except that I changed I, J, and K and L. So what I used to call K and L here are I and J. And then over here, instead of I and J, I used Y and X just to be difficult. So we have these 4 nested loops here. It doesn't matter actually in which order you do those. You could interchange the order. You could probably interchange the order of all of them. And over here, I now compute whether to take the pixel from image 1 or image 2. And here I store it in the right place. So the code itself doesn't look very difficult, but you really have to draw these pictures in order to get there. Otherwise, I don't see how you could get at that result.